Welcome to the Balanced Black Girl podcast. We're putting Black girl magic in motion. This show is dedicated to reinventing wellness for women of color. I'm your host, Lestrandra Alfred.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Balanced Black Girl podcast for our Feel Good Friday edition. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about side hustling and basically share some tips for side hustlers in terms of how to balance a side hustle and your full-time job, but also how to take care of yourself when you have a side hustle. So lately, I have been getting a lot of questions from people, both listeners of this podcast and people just around town, asking for career advice and asking, how did you find your why? How do I create a side hustle? How do I know if I have the right idea to pursue a side hustle? And if I do pursue a side hustle, how do I still make time for wellness and take care of myself while juggling all of these different things? So that's what we're going to talk about today. I have described myself as a passionate side hustler. I've had some sort of side hustle honestly, for as long as I could remember. Even when I was in high school, I would be working multiple jobs at a time, just always had a lot of interest and learned very early in my career that if there were jobs or opportunities that I wanted that didn't feel like they either existed or were available to me, that I could create some version of that for myself to feel fulfilled with. And as soon as I realized that, I honestly haven't looked back since. And I have been creating jobs and hustles and businesses for myself, basically to serve my own interests and to serve experiences that I wanted to have that didn't feel available to me ever since. So my first real side hustle truly started about 6 years ago when I first became a certified personal trainer. At the time, I was working in corporate finance and on the side started teaching fitness classes and training clients. And it was from that experience that I started my old blog, The Balanced Berry, and that whole wellness brand really stemmed from the work that I did as a personal trainer and fitness instructor there. And it has really evolved over time to create the platform and the show that you're listening to today. And almost the entire time I have had some other job or work or freelance side gig as I have built all of these platforms. So side hustling is just something that I have had a lot of experience with in a lot of different capacities. And it's something that I'm really, really passionate about sharing with others. I don't necessarily think that side hustling is for everybody. I also don't think that everybody needs a side hustle. I think that in our society today and in the internet space, entrepreneurship, side hustling, gig work can be over glorified at times as if it's something that everybody needs to do or that you're not doing life right if you don't have all these different hustles. And I don't think that that's the case. I think that there are some people who are more well suited for it. Perhaps if you are multi-passionate like myself, or if you just really have a mission that you want to get out there that maybe your day job doesn't allow you to do. Or if you're just somebody who likes to be really busy a lot of the time and you like to do a lot of different things, then maybe having a side hustle could be a good fit for you. But if you are someone who you have a job and you're fine with that job and you don't feel like you want to do a bunch of other things, that's more than okay. And don't let Instagram or Twitter or the internet or anyone on the internet make you feel different. You really have to do what's right for you. So I want to transition a little bit to talk about self-care for side hustlers, because this is something that can be really, really tricky. Today, we are all kind of constantly on and working and inundated with information 24/7. So especially if you're in the influencer space or in the online space in some way, you can essentially be working and you can be accessible and you could be reachable all of the time. And something that is really, really important to try to do the best of your ability if you have multiple jobs or multiple hustles when it comes to taking care of yourself is to really set clear boundaries about when your work time is. So especially if you're an influencer in the online space, it can feel like you're quote unquote working all the time, even if you're mindlessly scrolling through Instagram. And that's not necessarily the case. Doing things like that can be really, really draining on you and can really get in the way of your self-care, while also being really counterproductive to your business. So a mindset shift that I've learned to take is, if something is a revenue generating activity, because really the goal of any business or any side hustle should be to make money, those revenue building activities are always top priority. So whatever it is that you offer in your business to actually make you money should always be your top priority when it comes to your clear working time. So make sure that that is always front and center. And I don't know very many people who actually make money mindlessly scrolling through Instagram. I know quite a few people who do make money creating content to share on Instagram, but mindlessly scrolling is not one of those things. So if you find that you have activities that are draining your time but not making you money, especially as a side hustler, if your time is limited, it is really, really important that you reevaluate that and that you really dedicate your time starting off with those activities that make you money. So once you've identified either those activities that make you money or get you more clients or more speaking gigs or that truly help you build up your business, those should be the core tasks that you focus on. And you should look at your schedule to determine what your core working times are. So whether that is working for a couple of hours in the morning before you go to your day job or setting aside time in the evening after your day job, set aside those working hours and make sure that those core money-making activities are at the center of what you do. Everything else outside of that can get in where it fits in. But for those hours that you set for yourself, they should truly be spent on revenue-building activities. And let that be your guide for truly how you spend your time. Next is really making sure, especially when it comes to taking care of yourself as a side hustler, that you also are scheduling that time to take care of yourself. So whether that means that you are truly scheduling your workouts in on your calendar to make sure that you get them in, or scheduling that time with your friends because you know that the time with your loved ones is like self-care and soul care for you, put it on your calendar along with everything else. I know for me, if it's not on my calendar, it's as if it doesn't exist. And I literally make an appointment for self-care, soul care activities, just like I would a work meeting, just like I would a business meeting, just like I would an interview for this podcast that I need to conduct. It is just as important, and it deserves whatever time on your schedule that you can allow it. Because if you don't block off that time that is sacred to take care of you, it is so easy to just fill it up with work or even those mindless work activities, okay? Also, as a side hustler, one of the biggest lessons that I have learned that has really made a huge difference in how I spend my time is learning how to delegate and outsource. And I know, especially if you are a solopreneur or if you are an independent woman, the idea of outsourcing anything to anyone else can be a really scary thought. But at the end of the day, especially if you have a busy schedule working multiple jobs while running a business, you want to make sure that you are at the center of those things that only you can do. So those front-facing things, if you are a master at coaching your clients, if you are a master at delivering on those speaking gigs, if you need to be in front of the camera creating content because that is what you do, anything that is not that core magic that you bring, someone else could be doing. And that even goes for household things. Are you spending hours doing your own laundry? Are you spending hours going to the grocery store? Are you spending hours meal prepping? And I know that for me, the former food blogger who was always pro buy and do everything yourself, It sounds like a far departure, but if you're really thinking about making your side hustle successful and creating more time to do other things to either grow your business or for leisure or for taking care of yourself, those things that don't require your special magic to drive your business can and should be done by someone else. So if you were able to bring on an assistant or an intern to help do things like respond to social media content or map things out for you, schedule things for you, that is wonderful, because that will free you up to do more of those magical things that you are really special and good at. Or that's going to free you up to go out and get more paying clients. That's going to drive more revenue for your business. So if that means that you have to order Instacart to get your groceries delivered because that hour that you would spend at the grocery store is precious work time, where again, you could be driving more revenue or bringing in more clients or providing that magical service or touch that only you provide, then you can kind of make the decision to outsource those things that draw from that magic that you bring. And I know it's hard. Sometimes it can be hard to part with the money. It can be hard to part with the idea that you feel like you should be doing everything. But I know for me, learning how to delegate and outsource certain tasks has been a complete game changer, because it's allowed me to be more present and to take on more opportunities that have actually been even better for me than if I were doing every little thing in my business and in my personal life myself. So outsourcing and delegating, if you can swing it, if you have the help, if you have the ability to, can be a huge game changer in your side hustle. And the last thing I want to touch on when it comes to side hustle success and also just self-care for side hustles is the idea of working in seasons. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, the internet has convinced everybody that we all need to be entrepreneurs, that if you don't have a hustle or business, you're doing it wrong. It's also convinced all of us that we just need to be going all the time, that we can sleep when we're dead, that we should be grinding and hustling all of the time, and that if you're not doing that, then you're doing it wrong. And I strongly disagree with all of that. I think anytime that you are maybe building a business or you're working towards a lofty goal, there is going to be some amount of sacrifice there. So you're not going to be able to have the free time that you maybe once had. You're not going to have the leisurely time that you maybe once had. Sometimes you may need to miss out on things. Sometimes you may need to stay up later and wake up earlier. However, I don't think that means that you should be constantly breaking your back to grind, go all the time. Because especially if you're a side hustler, you have a lot of things demanding your time and energy. And if you are never taking a moment to replenish and enjoy the fruits of your labor, there's not going to be anything to draw from. So I really like to work in what I call sprints or seasons, where I basically will have shorter periods of time where I'm going really hard. I am working super hard. My schedule might be a little bit tighter, and I have just a lot of things that I'm really working hard to produce and get out there, followed by periods of time where I pace things out a little bit. So my best example of that I can think of is this show and the interview episodes that I do. So I will typically do about 2 weeks every 6 weeks or so where I will do a lot of interviews. That is where I will schedule interviews with most of my guests, where I will spend a lot of time interviewing during that 2-week span. And I will interview about 2 months worth of guests in that time. And for the rest of the time after that 2-week sprint of interviews, which is definitely very energy intensive and time intensive, I will then work with my team to batch out the episodes of this show. And that has been really, really helpful so that I'm not constantly rearranging my schedule to be able to interview people. I'm not constantly draining my energy interviewing people sporadically. I'm able to really batch it so that I can get a lot of content done all at once. And then I'm able to pace and have a little bit more ease in my schedule as I release that content for the audience, aka you. So you can look at your business, you can look at maybe a calendar that you have or content calendar, whatever you have coming up, and look at those times that are maybe going to be a bit more intense for you. Maybe where you have campaigns or where you have deadlines or where you're running programs or where you're really going to be heads down getting a lot of things done. And try to also build some flow, some ease after those periods so that you can really recharge and enjoy the fruits of your labor. But you don't need to be going all of the time. I like to think of it as seasons. You have seasons where you're working really hard to plant your seeds, to get things going, to make moves, to make deals, make things happen. And then you have seasons where you can harvest and where you can really enjoy the fruits of your labor and where you can pace things out a little bit to gear you up for the next season or sprint. So I think that has been a lot more beneficial, at least for me, for my business, and for my energy levels than trying to go all of the time, pedal to the metal. So I definitely encourage you to take a look at your schedule, your side hustle. Even if you haven't started your side hustle yet and it's just an idea, if you hit the ground running that way and start running your business with the idea of having seasons of sprints and seasons of pace, that is going to be so helpful for you in the long run. It's going to allow a lot more time for you to recharge, have your self-care, and not feel like you need to be going all of the time. I hope this episode was helpful for you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's Feel Good Friday episode, and we will see you next week.